So I just want to say that I am a feminist, and that's why I think that I am glad that this happened, because I have a lot of male privilege, and I don't always realize how powerful my male privilege is, but I think that this is sort of something that I deserved, and this was sort of a way to kind of make it a little bit more even between myself and the person who is what's the term that she wanted me to use? Person who is vaginally inclined. So I'm just really glad that, you know, that I was able to be there for her, to allow her to get some of this out, you know, and to sort of almost in a way kind of, you know, act as reparations for not only the oppression that she's faced by men, but the oppression that all of her ancestors who were also vaginally inclined. Not that, again, and I'm not saying that, you know, that's sort of, she was explaining this to me as well. That doesn't mean that to be a woman, that's not a woman, that's just a general descriptor for people who happen to possess certain genitals, you know. To be honest with you, I sort of get a little confused too, but that's another reason why this is good for me, because I think that I have sort of been, for too long, I've had the privilege of not being involved, and this was a way to sort of help me understand the pain that the vaginally inclined experience on a day-to-day basis, you know. So it was jeez, sorry, it's kind of interesting when you get over 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, you get to go to a special YouTube doctor, because we don't get any kind of health insurance or dental insurance or anything like that. So you can either look for a plan on your own, which is expensive, and a lot of times they don't, you know, you have the 6-month waiting period issue like I had before, or you can go to the YouTube doctor or the YouTube dentist. So you just have to bring your, you know, silver play button trophy. They give you a trophy when you get over 100,000 subscribers, and you get access to a certain tier of medical care. And then I think the next one is 1 million. When you get 1 million subscribers, then you get access to more. You know, if you get cancer or something, then I think that I'm not sure if they cover that with the $500,000 or 500,000 follower plan. You know, but certainly I think the ranks go 100,000, you know, 1 million, and then 10 million, which is like what Mr. Beast has. So I would imagine that Mr. Beast probably gets a pretty decent level of care. You just have to bring the play button, your silver trophy. And so when this happened, I was kind of like, oh my gosh, you know, I've got a blood spurting out of my neck. And I was like, where the hell did I put my YouTube silver trophy? You know, the 100,000 subscribers, because they sent it to me a couple years ago. You know, I think it was in 2024. And when I got it, I was like, well, what am I going to do with this piece of shit? You know, like, this is bulky. It's annoying. It's kind of hazardous because it's jagged on the edges. It's not very well engineered, you know. And I was like, why would I give a shit about this? So I put it in a storage unit, you know, which was on the other side of town. So I had blood spurting out of my neck, you know. And then I had Kitty Cat, who's, long story, that's what I call my what was the term that she told me to use? My person with which I am involved, in a physical and sexual manner. I was, you know, she was screaming like a crazy person, and I was sort of like, oh my gosh, I've got blood spurting out of my neck, you know. And I was rooting around in the closet trying to find my silver trophy, holding my neck like this, you know, because I saw on a TV show that you're supposed to do that. And I couldn't find it anywhere, so I was like, God damn it. And so I called the YouTube people. And I said, listen, I just got stabbed in the neck and I need to go to the YouTube doctor, but I can't find my silver trophy. And she was like, oh, that's totally, absolutely fine. Come right in. You know, it's just going to be $10,000, you know. And I said, well, if I get the care now, the emergency care, and then afterwards I find my YouTube silver trophy, can I retroactively get that taken care of? And she was like, no, because it's the way that the billing works with Google. They have to do it a certain way. So I was like, okay, well, that's a little steep. So then I was like, where the hell did I put that thing? And I remembered I put it in a storage locker that's on the other side of town. Thankfully, it was like 3 a.m, so there wasn't a whole lot of traffic. I think that probably saved my life, the fact that there wasn't a lot of traffic. So I had to get in the car and run, and I was holding my neck like this, and I just steered with one hand the car. Going in, and I went into the storage locker, you know, and was rifling through a bunch of stuff, and eventually I did find it, and I carried it with me over to the YouTube doctor. And you know, it was a very interesting place, because I don't think that I get very confused with medical titles, to be honest with you. I don't know if specifically this was an actual doctor or if you know, the doctor was in quotation marks, so it said like Dr. Martin or something, and the doctor had quotation marks around it. So I was sort of like, I wonder what that means. And you know, I asked the receptionist, and she said, well, that's because doctor is a protected title, so if we put quotation marks around it, then legally it's that sort of protects us from legal issue. You know, he is a doctor. And then she did air quotes when she said that, you know, he is a doctor. And then she said, well, I have to do that too because of the legal issues. But, you know, don't worry at all. He is absolutely 100% a real doctor. And she kept doing air quotes like this whenever she would say doctor. And so I said, well, you're not making me feel very confident with the air quotes. And she said, no, that's an insurance thing. That's a legal thing. You know, it has nothing to do with the quality of medical care. And then she did the quotation marks again with medical care, you know. And I was like, you keep doing the quotation marks, and I'm that's concerning me when you do the quotation marks around all of the important words. And she said, no, it's still the case. All of the words are true, you know. And then she did it again. And so at that point I was like, okay, well, can you just plug up the hole that's in my neck that's spurting blood, please? I don't know how I'm not dead by now, honestly. And she said, yeah, go ahead, sit down. You know, we're just waiting on some people. And there was a kid who had, again, it's a doctor for YouTubers. So there was a lot of stuff like this lady had burned half her face off doing a mukbang video, and then another kid had severed his balls by trying to jump into a hotel pool from the 10th floor, you know, and this other family was there because they had tried to do a prank where the dad threw the baby off of the staircase, and it was the way that it was supposed to go. The wife was explaining this to me in the waiting room. The way that it was supposed to go was they were supposed to throw the husband was it was a video that they had set up where the wife was going to come home from work. The husband was going to be playing with the baby up in the front of the house, the top of the house. And then he was going to throw the baby off of the balcony in the house. They had this sort of in the house balcony, you know, the second floor over the stairs. But it was a doll. In the plan, they planned for it to just be a doll. The wife wouldn't know that when she wanted. Of course, she actually did know that, but she had to pretend that she didn't know that in the video. You know, so he was supposed to throw the doll over the balcony, right? And then the wife was going to go like, oh my gosh, you just killed our kid. He fell off the balcony. And then he would be like, no, don't worry, it's a doll. Well, I guess that makes sense if you have a very realistic doll of a kid and the kid, and they both look the same. They got the two mixed up. So he actually did, unfortunately, throw the real kid off the balcony. And so they were at the hospital. I don't know if he was okay or not, honestly. I think that he was, because they didn't seem that upset about it. But I didn't get confirmation, you know, and I don't know who that was really. But it was stuff like that, you know, sort of YouTuber injuries, and it was very interesting. You know, so the thing about The Office is that you sort of, they made me sign, you know, they made me do all the onboarding paperwork. And I noticed that one of them was a consent release form for being in content. And I went up to the receptionist and I said, excuse me, what is this form here that I'm saying that I'm going to be in content? And they said, oh yeah, well, if you get care at YouTube Medical Clinic, then you sort of are agreeing to be in our YouTube web series. And I said, well, what does that mean? And she said, well, we have cameras set up all around the office, and then we're going to film you in the exam room. So you're basically constantly going to be filmed here, and then we will cut it together into it. She said there were a couple different forms of content that they do. They do a live stream, so you're actually being live streamed right now on the YouTube Medical Clinic web show. That's uncut, unedited. And then we will edit that into little episodes. If your medical visit is interesting enough, then we'll edit it into an episode. And then we'll also take that and edit that into some short form content. So if you say something funny, in the medical thing, then you'll be put into a short form reel as well for YouTube Shorts. And so I said, well, what if I don't want, I don't really want, this is kind of private, And she said, well, that's fine, but then you just can't go to the YouTube doctor. Then you have to go to a real doctor, So I said, okay, fine. And I figured what I'll do is I'll just try to make my visit really boring so that they don't have anything to edit into content, it was, again, it was very interesting. It was very strange because the guy eventually did call me back to the office, and he had me walk through. So he was like, Mr. Hentschel, and I said, oh yeah, that's me. And I got up and he said, cut, and I was like, what? And he said, no, sorry, we have to do that again. Sit down. And he said, when I say Mr., you sort of because then he started giving me notes, and he was like, you got up and just sort of mumbled and walked over here with your head hunched. You need to say, I'm Mr. Hentschel, and look alive, and then get up and walk over and say, nice to see you today, and shake my hand for the camera, for the reality show. And could you also wear this lav mic, which is a little mic that you clip onto your thing. Funny enough, the lav mic wasn't even connected to anything. And I said, you don't have this connected to anything? And they said, oh yeah, that's just a prop. We use all the in-camera sound. So I was like, whatever, So we did that again. And then we walked through the hallway into the examination room, and there was a guy with a gimbal, who was sort of filming me going into the room. Keep in mind, I'm spurting blood out of my neck this entire time. And I'm like, can we kind of hurry this up because this time is of the essence here, and the doctor, jokingly said, well, if you die in here, that's going to be great content. And then he slapped it wasn't my ass, so to speak. It was sort of more it was a gray area. And I think that he knew that, because it was sort of like my sort of between the tailbone and the lower back, and I said, I'm just joking around, and then winked, So he winked when he said he was joking, which that tells me that he was not joking, right? Because it's sort of a double negative. But I couldn't really tell anymore with this place because keep in mind, it's the middle of the night now. And I'm like, you know what? I just do whatever you got to do. I just want to get out of here, and I just want to have a hole in my neck plugged up, he invited me into the examination room, and he said, okay, take your pants off. And I said, what are you talking about? My neck is up here. And he said, well, part of the release form that you signed was that you're agreeing to do nudity. And I said, at this point, I was honestly considering leaving and just paying $100,000 to go to the regular doctor. Or I was hoping that I was just going to pass out and die right there and then. But that did not happen, unfortunately. And the rest of the visit was I guess, a normal doctor visit. It was just that, I kept having to redo things again because I didn't speak clearly enough, or I would use a foul language or a slur or something. Or the biggest thing was that there was a lot of blood, and blood is against the YouTube community guidelines. So they were like, we have to shoot around that blood. So keep your hand pressed there and try if you can to face it this way. The camera's over here. Try if you can to face it this way and turn your neck like this so that the blood will be off camera. And sometimes I would forget and I would go over here and they'd be like, stop, cut, you know, we got to do it again, you know. So that was a little annoying. So then they just gave me this, which was, to be honest with you, it looks to me like it's a bunch of cotton balls with packing tape, but they assured me that it was medical treatment, you know, with the air quotes. So, you know, so God only, I mean, I don't know. I don't even know anymore because it's been a hell of a 24 hours. It really has. You know, I guess I am grateful to the YouTube doctor for helping me, but no, and I have to remember, look, this is something that I deserve because every time I think about it, I think about the pain of multiple generations of women giving childbirth, or sorry, excuse me, the vaginally inclined to giving childbirth, you know. And I remember this probably is not even a 10th of a 100th of the collective pain that generations of vaginally inclined peoples have experienced, you know, put together. You know, so I understand and I get it.